Welcome, everybody. I want to welcome Michael Sue. Welcome, Michael.
What's up, buddy? How are you?
Good, good. I hear you're at an Airbnb.
Yes, I am in Taiwan. It's 3 a.m. right now, man.
It's 3 a.m. Is your family asleep? Is your wife asleep?
No, we are. Yes, my employees are asleep. We're actually in the middle of our retreat right now, going over our Q1 performance and planning the rest of the year out.
Got it. Got it. Well, thanks for making some time for us at 3 a.m. That's hardcore. You look fresh too. You look good.
Yeah, I'm used to it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. I'm super excited to talk with you. Obviously, personally, just for my own reasons. You are what they call a financial wingman. You've had the opportunity with 2 financial degrees. You help companies maximize cash. You're an outsourced CFO, and you've got a lot of folks that help businesses identify their KPIs. Some businesses call them vital factors, and really get clear on their vital factors and provide kind of like the services that if you can't afford a CFO, you provide that service for them at a fee. And what really interested me about the stuff that you and I were talking about is right now, small businesses, perhaps more than ever, are looking to, if I have it correctly, one of my goals is to make sure I hoard cash so I can get through the storm. I don't know whether that's the right strategy, so I'm really excited to learn from you. And I even understand that you've got some like a blog or some like a 5 steps or 10 steps that small businesses can take. So we'll get to all that in a second. But first, welcome. Thank you for being on the broadcast.
No, thank you for having me, man. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited.
Cool. If you can, do you mind just sharing a little bit about your background and how you sort of, if you would, you have a really cool story about how you sort of started to figure out what made businesses tick and some of the keys to isolating KPIs and things that were super, super important. You've even started another business called Measure and Hack. But if you can, just give us a real 2-minute background on the companies you serve and things like that.
Yeah, so I started this thing 10 years ago, really. Went to school, didn't want to go to school. Wanted to drop out, and that was not an option for Asian kids. So wanted to do business, and my mother told me that accounting was the language for business, and that if I wanted to do business, I better know my numbers. Went into school for that and discovered that that wasn't the case. Anyways, 2 degrees later, CPA license, and then went into a firm. The day that I got my CPA license, I was like, I'm gonna quit. All right, my mom was visiting from Taiwan, and I was like, I'm gonna quit. And I started my own firm. Back then, it was just really an accounting firm, outsourced bookkeeping, outsourced accounting. It was a means to an end. I was supposed to make my first $1 million and then start a real business, which was buying and selling. And as I was doing that, I've discovered that as good as we are as entrepreneurs, that to change the world, we're terrible with numbers. We're terrible with key vital factors or vital numbers. We're terrible with understanding them. So over the last 10 years, we've really transformed and really merged a lot of what we did in accounting school with a lot of what business consultants would do. How do you manage team? How do you manage your finances? How do you operate your business? And all of that into one. And, we like to call ourselves financial wingmen. And again, really learn what makes your business tick. There's only so many levers that you can move around in your business. And the idea is not just kind of throw everything on the wall and see what sticks, but really be strategic and understand what is it that's driving your business. Understand where do you stand today. Understand where do you want to get to, and then what are the 5 or 6 levers that you can move to really help you get there with less time, less energy, and less effort.
Got it. Okay. So that's a great background. Now, in the last week or two, so that people watching can start to get a sense of where they might fit in the examples that you're going to offer here in a second. Can you give me an example of maybe a B2B company or a B2C company? And I don't know, you'd have a better view of it than I would, but can you give us an example of some of the calls you're getting and some of the suggestions you're giving without giving out anybody financial advice necessarily on this broadcast? Can you give some experience shares of what companies are calling you with and how you might be helping them navigate their situation.
Yeah, so the phone's been nonstop, and I can remember last Wednesday specifically, one of our clients at 9 a.m. start picking up their phone call, and they're in the event business, one of the business that got hit really hard, and these were cancellations that are coming in, $300, $400, $500,000 deals that's been years in the making. By noon,
they do events nationally or internationally?
They do the events internationally.
Got it. Okay.
And by noon, they had lost dollars revenue. So that's.
Second, I'm sorry, you cut out there. So rewind just 30 seconds. By noon, they'd lost a lot of the business.
$9 million.
$9 million. Okay.
$9 million in businesses, and at that time, the knee-jerk reaction is to crawl up into a hole and hope that this is all a dream. But that's not what we do. That's not what entrepreneurs do, right? We buckle down, we take inventory, we understand where we stand today.
Yep.
Right? We take inventory of the situation, we understand, what is going on, so then we can make a plan. Instead of panicking. I think now more than ever, our team, our employees, our family look to us to be leaders and really help them navigate through this turbulent water instead of just panicking and struggling to survive.
Got it. So was that your advice to them in the very beginning, to know where they are, right?
Yeah. I mean, for my clients, for my deep side clients that already have our outsource CFO, outsource accounting businesses, they're pretty lucky because we have set rhythms that they always know where they stand, right? We're updating their financials on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, and we always have this communication loop. But we were also getting people that were friends that weren't our clients, right? But it doesn't matter if you have, the first thing we really want to do in a time of crisis like this is to understand what's going on. What kind of footing do we have, right? Where do we stand on? So then we can decide what are our next moves, right? Okay. So step one for any business in this current situation is, don't panic, take a breather, and take inventory. Where do you stand? Are things as bad as it feels right now?
Okay. And what specifically can we do to take inventory? What can we do, or what did you recommend that event company do? And it might be different because they already had financials with you and they probably already had inventory, but are there a couple of things, 2 or 3 things that you can make recommendations for small businesses that are watching that they could do right now today that are simple within the context of all the information that they're getting right now and all the things they have to react?
Yeah. Step one, cash. Right, we've all heard this in the past, right? What is it? Revenue is vanity, profit is reality, but cash is king. Mm-hmm. Right now, more than ever, you have to have cash. The issue with most business is that we rely so much. We're so good at making money. All right, we've built this business, this money-making machine. We're so good at it that we rely on the large number, $500,000, $1 million, $2 million of revenue coming in and then going out. And then through that, as the money coming in and going out, we're so used to spending that, right? We're so used to keeping that afloat, paying our employees, paying our vendors and all of that. Well, all of that is gone right now, right? If you're immediately impacted like that event company, you're, like I said, between 9 and 12 a.m., you're losing $9 million. Between noon and 5 a.m., you're losing another $6 or $7 million. That's $15 million in a day worth of work, right? So that faucet gets shut off, and the only thing that will keep a business alive is cash. So the first thing you got to do is you got to look to yourself. And I'm not trying to get fancy right here. I'm literally like, open up your digital wallet or whatever, open up your bank account, and how much cash do we have? Step one, you got to figure out what your war chest looking like and how long is that going to last you. Okay. So step two, answer the question, how long is that going to last you?
Okay. How do you think?
I have $300,000. If today I have $300,000, do I still have
you? You just came back. You there?
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
If today I have $300,000 in cash, yeah, we good?
Yeah, I think we're good now.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So if today we have $300,000 in cash and your monthly minimum expense is $100,000, that's 3 months cash. Okay. 3 month cash, essentially, you almost think of cash as in time, right? So if you have 3 month cash, it means you have 3 months to figure things out, right? If you have 14-day cash, it means you have 14 days to figure things out. What you're going to do in 14 days versus what you're going to do in 3 months or in 6 months is very different, right? So you have to understand that. The first thing that went out when people realized that there's a problem is that we went out and say, hey, stop all outgoing payments. All right. Last week, if you're trying to collect, you're late. 2 weeks ago was when you were supposed to collect.
What, collect
right?
receivables?
Collect on receivables. Yeah. So now you're trying to figure out, okay, who can I not pay, right? Who can I not pay? Who can I hold off payment for? Who do I have to pay? And number one on that list is your employees, right? I always say this, our employee did not sign up for this crazy life we call entrepreneurship, right? They showed up to work 8 to 5 every single day. They expect a paycheck, right? The first payroll to go is us, all the CEOs. I even see some CEOs that don't own the company, that are not the owners of the company, opted to not take a salary, right? Vendors, right? Especially larger vendors. We're asking landlords for rent abatement. We're asking landlords for, forgiveness, 30 days, 60 days. We're asking American Express. We're literally going down our expense list, and we're trying to understand who can we not pay immediately, and how long can we squeeze our war chest, our cash balance out, so we can figure the business out.
So are some of your clients calling American Express, wherever they're leasing their offices, are they calling those and just asking for 30 days, 60-day abatement, or just relief?
I start with abatement.
Yeah. What is abatement? What does abatement mean? What does that mean?
People will actually forgive your rent.
Just forgive the rent for a month.
Yeah, for a month. Yeah. And we actually the best case scenario, we actually got 2 months off. So one case we got 2 months off, another case we got 1 month off. A lot of people are not making long-term commitments. So it's more like hey, we'll see what happens within 30 days. There are laws that are being passed, or recommendations that are being passed right now, that you're not allowed to evict tenants. And the landlords understands that, and the landlord know that they don't have as much leverage, and they're willing to work with you. They'd rather you stick around and survive this so that you can pay them at a later date than go out of business.
Awesome.
Right. So definitely work with that.
Excellent. Anthony, Cecilia, awesome. Thank you for joining us. Cecilia has a question. Curious if she should pay the full balance of her business credit card this month. I got the same question for Amex and business credit card.
Yeah, so I didn't. My business credit card is due, I believe, one on the 25th, which was yesterday, and then another few due on the 7th. And I called American Express, I called Chase, and both of them extended 30 days pay for me. So yeah, they say I think they call it a forgiveness program. So they will forgive your interest, and they will forgive your late fee for 30 days. And here's the thing. You have to look down your expense, and you have to see who can afford to give you this. Scott, you and I, nobody's coming to bail us out, right? Or $2, $3, $4, $5 million, my mentor will call it popsicle stands, right? No one's coming to bail us out. But these guys, these banks, right? They have the cash to them, forgiving your, whatever they're charging you, $500, $1,000 interest or late fee. They can afford that. But understand, as more and more people ask for it, they're going to get squeezed as well.
Yep.
Right. So it's a rippling effect. I'm less concerned about.
If you're going to make the call, then do it now.
Yeah. And here's the funny part. And I say do it as soon as you can, because I actually have a friend, another his payment. He just made his payment, and they called, and then this is what they said. They said, well, you made your payment, so you're obviously fine, and we'll talk about next month when next show comes around. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't pay for it. I will call them and I will ask for that forgiveness.
Piggybacking on Cecilia's question, should she pay the full balance? What about the minimum balance? Or just call them and say, give me 30 days?
No, I asked for 30 days, so I'm not even paying the minimum balance. I mean, I think I had like 2 or 3 cards that were, you know, a few $100 or a few $1,000. I just opted to pay for those, but they were fully ready. They were fully ready to just, you know, they were just like, oh, you got 3 cards with us, you got 4 cards with us. Yeah, sure, we'll give you 30 days. But I felt a little bit bad. And, you know, here's the thing. I want to take what's going to help me, but I don't want to burden the system too much. Because every time we're asking for these late payments or these forgiveness, yes, a bank is huge, right? They have billions or trillions, but still, you know, every little bit adds up.
Yep.
Right. And you don't want to be that burden, because here's the thing, the issue with this economy isn't the virus itself. I don't understand anything about the virus, but more so it's the fear, right? The fear of exchanging money, because the whole financial system is built on trust. And if there's no trust and there's stock full of money, then the whole system comes to a halt. Yep. Right? If the money stops moving, that's what causes economic downturn. So while I'm leveraging all of these things, at the same time, I don't want to burden them more than I need to.
Yep. Got it. And welcome, Todd and Anthony, by the way, if you haven't, and those looks like a few other folks who's joined us. We're talking about maximizing your cash. A lot of businesses, including my business, our question is, how do we best manage cash to survive the storm? How do we maximize cash? And I'm really excited about this, Chunk. Let's go into a couple of different things. I think you have 3 or 4 strategies to find hidden cash in your business that may surprise people, that maybe they haven't looked. We all know we've got money in the bank. We all know that we've got money in wherever we've got, you know, stocks or whatever it is. Maybe not so much more. But what are some strategies that you've used to find hidden cash in your business?
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about the expenses. We talked about the credit card, right? Yep. So that's one. We talked about rent abatement. That's the second one that is huge. This one is it's interesting. If you're a service company, your biggest expense is gonna be your payroll.
Yep.
And I mentioned at the very beginning of this call that you don't expect your employees to not be paid. Right. I mean, that's not what they signed up for. However, I will share this with you. I saw a lot of clients. What they did is that they sat down, they went over the financial modeling, and they modeled out scenarios. Right? They said, for example, my payroll is $70,000. We make 30 cents on the dollar, so we got to make at least 210,000. Here's our strategy to make that money. We're cutting all other expenses. We're holding off payments. Our job number 1 is to take care of our employees. Right. And they took this to the employee, and I was surprised. I wasn't expecting this. I already said this. Owners and CEOs, it's easy for us to forego our salary because when times are good, we make the money. This is our business. Right. We actually saw executive level who was like, yeah, you know what? I don't need to be paid. I don't need to take my $10,000, $15,000 paycheck for 1 month or 2 months and say, I'm here with the company. I was absolutely surprised. Like, these guys have no equity in the business, right? They're a COO, they're a CMO, and that's something that inspires me in a small business of how employees come together in times like this and are willing to support you. I have other employees who are making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 who say, hey, you know what, I can manage for the next 30, 40, next 30, 60 days, and I'm willing to give up my portion of the cash to someone else next to me, maybe another employees who absolutely need the money. So we're seeing. I'm not saying that, hey, go to your employee and ask them to not be paid, but I'm saying that that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of people jumping in and volunteering for that. I'm seeing a lot of trade, which is almost like we went back to the Stone Ages. People are like, hey, you know what? Reduce scope, right? Reduce scope of services. Come up with creative ways to kind of trade. Like, hey, you know what? Maybe you can do X, Y, and Z for me, so I can employees while I do for you. Those are all expense side. But then at the end of the day, you can only cut so much.
Right.
Okay. At the end of the day, you can only cut so much. So there's two things that I like to offer. One is if you have a line of credit, pull it out. Like I said, as the bank are getting squeezed, they are going to take that away from you, right? The joke is that whenever you need the money, they're not going to give it to you, right? When you don't need it, they're like, hey, take my money, take my money.
Right.
I'll pull it out. I have clients that pulls it out, put it on the side, ask for it just because they can. And again, it's just it adds that to part of your war chest of moving forward, and the rates are pretty good.
And I've even heard of some companies that had pulled their line of credit and then they open up an account at another bank and drop the money in there just in case the bank calls the line of credit. They can't just pull it directly back out of your account.
Right. And again, depending on kind of, what your agreement is with the bank, that's a little bit different, but talk to your banker, talk to your controller, talk to your CFO. You need to, at the end of the day, access to cash is never worth as much as cash itself. I would be super careful though and avoid like short-term debts. There are so many short-term debts out there that are questionable, and I think those things are the crack cocaine of entrepreneurship. So I would say, hey, if you have a regular line of credit, pull those out. If you're applying for the SBA disaster relief fund, by now you should have your financials ready. Get your tax return ready. Get your tax return filed, and then go for that. Those are all ways for getting cash. We're actually seeing rates this week is a little bit better than last, and we're actually seeing bankers still releasing some of those funds. Wow. So I would definitely talk to the banks and see what you can get out there. And then the last thing to find cash at the end of the day is it's revenue. And you might think right now like, hey, there's no way, but we've seen successes. We've seen creativity. A lot of people moving to lower dollar value. So instead of it'd be hard for me to convince you to pay me $5,000, $8,000, $10,000 in consulting right now, but $159 courses, $250, $1,000, $1,500, one-time consulting gigs. I think those are a lot more palatable. Again, it's just people are always going to need something. They're always going to need the value to be created. So go ahead and create that and help people out. And you still got to drive revenue. People moving their workshops to online workshops.
Right.
This is an interesting one because everybody wants to move to online, and I'm a little bit afraid that it might turn the whole thing into like a red ocean almost overnight. But this is very interesting. We found successes geographically. So I'm in Taiwan right now, and things are not that bad. So I know back home in the States, everything is getting shut down, and we have so much freedom, and we've never dealt with a pandemic like this. Taiwan dealt with SARS 17, 18 years ago. And I just came back from a restaurant, and it's business is slow, but they've held the same 46 cases for like 2 months and 1 death. And they had an explosion last week from all the foreigners from Europe and US as things are getting shut down. They're traveling back, but they're all being stopped, right? They're all being stopped at the airport. They're all being quarantined. There's no cases spread within Taiwan. You walk up into any establishment, they take your temperature, right? They give you alcohol, you wash your hand. Taiwanese people are super used to wearing face masks, right? So when the government said that, so they've controlled the spread of this disease, and we're able to find pockets of geographies like this that works where business can still be done. So if your revenue is not tied to the US or Europe, right? Perhaps look into that. Perhaps look in separate countries that are doing a way better job than we are.
So I had a dental emergency 2 nights ago, and I was a little bit nervous about it. And I called the main number of the dentist, explained what was going on. She had the dentist call me, who I've known for my whole life. As I went in yesterday, they took my temperature, they did all that kind of stuff, and, fine. So they worked on me and they described what they were going to be trying to do and what they're going to try to do to continue to drive revenue, even just some revenue to stay afloat and kind of keep things moving. Is as I started to talk to them a little bit, they started asking me what some of the things that they could do. And Amit was on a couple of days ago. He said, find the acute need with your customers and serve that need. Look for creative ways to serve that need. And so I started talking to them about that, and they identified 2 things that they could do effective immediately. Once they took the focus off themselves and they started thinking about their ideal customer, and they said, you know what? We could actually start a program called 12 Weeks to a Brighter Smile. And every week we could give them a video on things that they could do, how their kids can brush their teeth, how they can take care of certain periodontic sort of things. And they could have links to products that other people shipped on teeth whitening and oral care, and they could make an affiliate sort of margin on that stuff. And so he was really excited about figuring out ways to keep his employees moving forward, keep serving customers. And it took a mindset shift, saying, going from sort of victim, everything's coming at me, to how can I serve, a radical focus on customers and being really creative on how to fulfill that need. So I thought that was really clever that he just jumped to it like that and came up with some new ideas on ways to serve his customers and generate some revenue.
No, I absolutely love that. And that's what we do, right? Like, we are entrepreneurs. It's our job to solve problems. And this is no different than any business problem. This is our chance. It's a fundamental I think paradigm shift in a lot of ways, but it's an absolute whenever there's change, whenever there's crisis, there's opportunity.
Sure.
So look into that and figure out kind of, we talked in the very beginning of this call, take inventory of where you're at. What's your workplace location like? How much time do you have? Then you can plan out these other stuff, like, how long is it going to take me to roll out that, 12 weeks to a better smile? Right. Does it take me 3 days or does it take me 3 months? Because if you have 14 days, you might not have, the luxury to build something that is long-term. Right. But at the end of the day, people are still going to need stuff. For us, it's the same way. All we've been doing, the thing is, we're not taking on any new outsource accounting clients, outsource CFO clients right now, because it doesn't make sense, right? The whole process is too long. I have to do design and build. I have to look at your QuickBooks. I have to, look at your Zero and try to understand all the problems and then all that stuff. By the time I got to actually creating value, it's too late. But you know what people really need right now? They need to figure out what's going on in their cash, right? They need to figure out, where do I stand? Where am I going to land? What are my assumptions? And then what are my options? What are my choices? If I take that to the SBA, if I take that to my employees, if I build a strategy around it, that's step number 1. And we've been doing a lot of that. We've written articles about it. We've created templates about it. We're on webinars and workshops like this. We've created, these little product, like heavily discounted product that just focus. It's almost like a hack. It's almost like, hey, skip. Yes, it's not going to be perfect, but this is what you're going to need. And this is what's going to add value right now.
Excellent. And it sounds like, and I know I talked to you a little bit before we jumped on, and you actually created either a blog or a checklist or a link. Can we make that available to anybody that's watching, or could you tell them where to go to download that? And it's like everything you just talked about, like credit card, look at your credit cards, look at a rent abatement, look at your payroll, look at ways to perhaps furlough or maybe shorten the time frames, or the time of people, the work week, pull out lines of credit. You've got a checklist. Where can we find that checklist?
Yeah, so we can go ahead and drop that on our blog. Okay. And then so it's a PDF download, and then we can drop that on our blog, and then maybe we can share that link, or people can email in and comment.
The link right now, if anybody's going to write it down, and then we'll drop it in after this broadcast. Or what is the website where they can go grab it?
Yeah, so the website is deepsky, deepsky.co.
Deepsky.co.
Deepsky.co. Yeah, and then there's a free tools page. We'll probably just drop it in there, and then we can make that a PDF available for everybody.
Cool. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate it. Any other examples of small businesses that other people can relate with? Cecilia is a leadership expert, and she works with tons of larger businesses, big ad agencies, big financial institutions, and global firms. Anthony's on, and he's obviously, Anthony. He's a consummate entrepreneur. So what other suggestions, if any, or some examples of other businesses you're working with, either big or small, that they're doing that's interesting that we might be able to sink our teeth into?
The first thing that came to mind is so
What's that?
bad. People are thinking about their
Mm,
staff. People are thinking about their staff, and that there's a whole plan around, like if we do really need to lay off people,
mhm.
what that looks like,
Yeah,
and if we can't, if we can't help it that we don't, what does furlough look like?
yeah.
And I believe, I believe we have some experts in our network that is going to be discussing that a little bit.
Yeah, on Friday we've got Don Ho, who's an attorney, as
Yeah,
well as Fletcher Wimbush, who has like an HR firm, and together they're going to walk through some strategies how to ethically, empathically, or empathetically work with employees, make sure it's legal.
yeah.
They've got a bunch of different options for employers to work with their employees, so that when things do turn around, they've created an environment, an ideal environment for them to get assimilated back into the workflow.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the first thing that I think that I thought about. The other thing that I'm working with this consulting company is it's almost similar to my business, is that we're moving so heavy into digital.
Mm.
You know, we're instead of having these again one-off consulting or workshop where you're trying to gather 20, 30, 40 people in. We've done our due diligence, we've done our financial modeling, understand that we have about 3 maybe to 5 months of breathing room. And that allowed us time that we know in March it's going to hit us hard. We know we're not going to get any revenue. The revenue is zero. We know in April the revenue is going to be zero. However, in May, we believe that we were able to put together new classes, new online classes, new technology platform actually. So one example that I can give specifically with Deep Sky is the measure and hack classes that you have mentioned,
Mm.
right? The original plan was that we were going to launch that in Q2,
Okay.
and then we're going to slowly roll that out in Q3 and Q4. However, because of this whole thing, we decided to pull the entire project forward,
Oh, pull forward.
right? Yeah, we'll pull the entire project forward. So instead of chasing revenue, instead of chasing consulting revenue in Q2, that's what we're doing here at this retreat. We're literally positioning. Once you set the strategy, once you set the goal, we're literally repositioning our entire resources, our entire staff into. So in the past, it was supposed to be me and one or two guys helping me out. Now we're saying, hey, if we can carve out half of the workforce and then drop them into building, cash forecasting model, financial forecasting model, building out templates, we might be able to roll these courses out earlier,
Right.
right? So it's almost a shift in business model.
Yeah.
It's almost in business model, and I ran the projections on that. It was ridiculous because you're thinking like, oh, why are you giving up 70, 80, $100,000 worth of consulting revenue for peanuts, right? 100, like 49 dollar classes, $100 classes, or $249 templates, whatever it is. But if I run the numbers, and if these guys, and if the consumption level is 50, 100, 500, 1,000, I probably make more money on online classes and templates and one-off gigs, than my consulting revenue.
Mm.
It's a fundamental shift in business model, but I think it provides the same value. And here's the interesting part, and it utilizes the same resource, so that I don't have to lay any people off.
Right. Right. I think it's going to be interesting to see over the next 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, how some businesses actually adapt and improvise, let go of old sort of models of doing business, adapt new ones, and actually become stronger through it. I think we're seeing seeds of that right now.
Yeah, here's something else that is absolutely phenomenal. I didn't think of this. We're fully virtual, and we run the company. We have staff in Canada. We have staff in Taiwan, and to me, it was so normal to run my business, 10 feet from my bed. To have a team overseas, to have people working in 2, 3, 4 different time zones on Zoom.
Right.
And it wasn't until this crisis that I realized that's that's not normal. There are still a lot of businesses today that is scrambling to try to make that
Right.
happen. And that completely fascinates me, because now I'm like,
You've already
holy
crossed that
crap.
bridge.
If like if there's attrition there, that's whole market being opened up, that I'm just gonna totally kick the butts of these other companies that were just not used to
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I agree. Ours is the same situation where we're virtual, and I've changed from my old company to my new company, and all that has already been taken care of. So I'm working with people all around the world, and it's very easy for me to adapt to some things that might be more difficult. Tomorrow we've got on somebody who Ricardo from Juxto, and he owns a technology company, and all they do is help people build remote teams with technology, phone systems, virtual systems, and he's got all kinds of different tools. And he's going to be offering some free services to people that are really, really in need right now. And he's talking not only about the technology part of working remote, but some of the practical things that are required for people to be able to work remote, and some of the common challenges that people have working remote that sometimes people don't think about. You and I work remote. Many of our fellow entrepreneurs do work remote, but there's lots and lots and lots of people who are still really, really adjusting to that for sure.
Yeah, and this is absolutely our opportunity. It's really funny. I was on a Facebook group of another entrepreneur group, and they were and these old timers are like, yeah, I'm not used to this, and and they're like, you guys are gonna kick our butt.
Huh.
And I didn't realize that, and I think as the as our clients, or because this is what we teach our clients, right? Go through your financials and really cut all of the non-essentials, right? Reevaluate your business model. Look at your revenue. How are you making money? Not just the business type, but we mentioned geographically, right? Business type, geographically. How are you collecting? Right? One of my mentor gets on the phone with me last week, and the first thing he says is like, for 20 years I've been doing this, and the two mistakes that I still make: never forcing my company to move to a cash upfront model, and two, never went hard in digital. Because business was fine. It wasn't perfect. I knew about digital. I knew about money upfront, but there was no pain.
Right.
And now
Right.
there is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And now there is.
In the workshop that I do, there's two. We talk about the 7 trends that are impacting businesses right now in 2020. I never in my wildest imagination 2 months ago or a month and a half ago when I gave the presentation that trend number 1 was it's all about the customer. Nobody cares about the other business. They care about their personal situation, what's going on there. So how do we meet them on their terms with our message? It's super, super important, obviously, today. The other 2 trends were that we're spending about 5 or 6 hours online. That number's obviously shot up. And the number of hours we're spending on social, that number's exponentially increased. So all that has certainly impacted us now.
Yeah. And here's something interesting. China's been through this. Right? China's been on lockdown for a while now. And I'm actually, I myself am looking at it, and then I suggest to my client is like, what happened in China? How did their economy shift? I remember our friends were bored out of their head because they were all quarantined at home. And food, one of the things was food was being created, right? And TikTok over in China is wildly popular, but you can't create content outside. So people started like creating food and shooting videos about that, right? So it just got me thinking. It's like, okay, would that same thing happen in the United States? Right? Would the same thing take place in the United States? And if it's almost like we have a time machine that we can look into the future and we can understand where this economy will go. And if you're there, right? If you're there, you might be able to benefit from it.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Well, I really appreciate you sharing some of these questions. Before we wrap up, if anybody else has any questions for Michael about their business, about cash, about making sure that you're finding all the available cash you can, feel free to drop a note. But while we wrap up, I do want to thank you. I would encourage people to go to deepsky.co, DEEPSKY.co. Grab that free download on kind of this checklist of things that you could do every day to make sure that you're managing your cash as effectively as you possibly can. I think you froze too. Oh, there you go. All right, good, good. All right, well, thank you. Is there anything you want to close?
Yeah.
Anything you want to close with? I mentioned tomorrow we're going to be talking to somebody that all they do is work with remote employees, with technology and staffing and help with all that kind of stuff. So we've done some really good stuff there. But is there anything that we left out that you'd like to mention?
No, I'm gonna hit it on the nail again. Cash is king.
Cash is king.
Cash is king. You gotta have it and find it right now. But more importantly, I think this is a good wake up call that, you know, going forward, the reason why a lot of our clients are able to survive this is because they navigate it. They navigated their business. They took inventory. They understand where they stand. They navigated their business. They didn't panic. Because right now we can't afford to panic. Our employees look to us to be that leader. And if you're just trying to throw things on the wall and hope it sticks, if you're making decisions, if you're firing people because you're thinking, you know, there's a crisis, or this is the crazy part, or if you're oblivious. I've talked to people and say, oh yeah, we're not affected. You're gonna be affected. Right, the economy is going to ripple through. So understand where you sit. Talk to your CFO, talk to your accountant. That's what you hire them for, right? Understand where you sit, and then start looking into it for opportunity, not just from a cost saving perspective, but business model perspective. You want to be able to thrive out of this, right? Instead of just barely survival, you want to be able to thrive out of this. And the only way you are going to thrive is to understand kind of where you stand, you know, and be able to navigate it. And again, I you know, deepside.co, that's kind of where a lot of our resources